9 experienced mountaineers undressed themselves in a blizzard and walked barefoot into the Siberian night, and the official investigation never explained why. The record begins on January 23, 1959. A group of 10 ski hikers departed Sverdlovsk, an industrial city in the Urals, bound for Mount Otterton. They were students and young professionals. Most had completed similar expeditions. The trip was planned for 2 weeks. Only 9 would return, and not the way anyone expected. Exhibit 1. On February 2nd, the expedition leader, Igor Dyatlov, sent a final radio message. He reported the group was setting camp on the eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl. The weather was deteriorating. Nothing in his transmission suggested panic. Nothing suggested they knew what was coming. When the hikers didn't report on February 12th, search parties mobilized. What rescuers discovered wasn't a camp abandoned in panic. It was methodical, controlled. The tent had been slashed from the inside. Sleeping bags lay strewn outside. Boots remained neatly arranged. The scene suggested the hikers had left deliberately, not fled in terror. Exhibit 2. The bodies. Over the following weeks, 9 corpses were recovered across a vast radius. Some lay just 5 kilometers from the tent. Others were found deeper in the forest. The autopsies revealed no obvious signs of violence on 5 of the bodies. No gunshot wounds, no blunt force trauma. The official cause listed was hypothermia. But here's where the record grows complicated. 4 of the 9 showed evidence of serious injury. Ludmila Dubinina had fractured ribs and internal injuries. Nikolai Thiboksbrignoles displayed a fractured skull. The injuries were consistent with blunt force, yet no weapon was ever recovered. No struggle marks appeared at the tent. The file offers no explanation for this contradiction. Exhibit 3. The clothing. Several bodies were found partially or completely undressed. In February, in Siberia, temperatures that night dropped well below freezing. One hiker, Yuri Krivonishenko, was discovered wearing only a shirt and trousers. Dubinina was found in a bra and torn underwear. The investigating team documented this. They didn't explain it. Hypothermia does produce something called paradoxical undressing. The dying brain misfires. Victims feel burning heat instead of cold and remove their clothing. Medical literature documents this. But paradoxical undressing typically occurs minutes before death in shelter or near the body's final resting place. These hikers undressed far from where they were found. They walked barefoot. They kept moving. Exhibit 4. The radiation. In the weeks after the discovery, a Soviet official made a single public statement. He said the investigation had found evidence of high-level radiation on the bodies and clothing. The statement was never elaborated. No measurements were published. The official later denied he'd made it. The file contains no radiation reports. The official investigation closed in May 1959. The conclusion: the hikers had died from an unknown compelling force. That's the exact language in the report. Not exposure, not avalanche. A force. Unnamed, unidentified. The case was sealed. Files remained classified in Soviet archives for decades. Theories have since emerged. Avalanche is one. The record shows no avalanche debris, no crushing injuries consistent with snow burial. Military experiments, the Urals were a weapons testing zone. The record only says there's no evidence of this. Infrasound, a low-frequency vibration that can induce panic and disorientation. Speculative, unproven. What the evidence firmly establishes: 9 people abandoned a defensible shelter in a blizzard. They undressed in lethal cold. Some were injured by unknown means. They spread across kilometers of forest. They died. The reason they left the tent, that single moment, remains absent from the record. One survivor, Yuri Yudin, had left the expedition early due to illness. He never knew what happened to his friends. In interviews decades later, he said only, there was something wrong, something that forced them out of that tent. He couldn't articulate it. The record never did either. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains unsolved, not because evidence is absent, but because the evidence contradicts itself. The hikers left shelter deliberately. They were injured, they undressed, they scattered. Each fact stands isolated from the others. No single explanation contains them all. That's the shape of the case that sits in the archive. 65 years later, the Russian government released selected files. The core mystery persisted. Why did they leave? The files didn't say. Some investigators have proposed new theories. Avalanche revisited, infrasound refined. None have been proven. None address all the facts simultaneously. What remains certain: 9 skilled mountaineers encountered something that compelled them to abandon safety in a Siberian winter. Some were hurt. All were killed. The mechanism remains classified, disputed, or simply unknown. The file closes with no closure. That's not failure. That's the truth when the truth itself is incomplete. Subscribe. Every week we examine a case where the official record runs dry, but the mystery remains open.